As a private practice owner, you cannot rely only on great clinical care to attract new patients and to keep them over time. You're supposed to be great at clinical care, and there's plenty of competition to you anyway. Don't shoot the messenger here. But it's true. So, how do you differentiate? Well, one way is to offer great customer service. But unfortunately, a lot of practices don't take that too seriously. My guest today consults with dental practice owners, and he helps them take it seriously. And he's going to give us his thoughts on how you can too. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. It's usually what they want anyway, but care is better, I believe, when the providers own the practice because all the clinical decisions, all the business decisions can all be made by those who are delivering the clinical care. And to me, that's just the best place where those decisions should reside. It's not always the same when it's pure business people, owners in faraway lands, whoever they may be. Let's just keep it simple and keep it private. My guest today is Jake Goetz. Since 2003, Jake has given group seminars and training on sales and marketing. He's a key opinion leader for various dental marketing companies. Since 2013, Jake has personally consulted more than 5,600 dentists nationwide on their marketing strategies and sales skills to reduce unnecessary spend while increasing collections. Jake founded GOAT Dental Marketing, GOAT Dental Marketing Consultants in early 2023, providing marketing strategy and sales coaching for dental offices across the country. Jake, with his wife and two daughters, enjoy living and playing in the mountains of northern Utah. Maybe one day we'll get to talk about that. I'm not so sure today, but anyway, Jake, thank you for coming back on Practice Care.
Yeah, Carl, it's good to always catch up and talk through these
Yeah.
topics with you.
Yeah, and we get to talk marketing stuff today, which I don't get to do too often on Practice Care. That's part of its design. There's way more to a private practice than marketing. So I'm glad that we can talk a little shop today. We're going
Yeah.
to talk about customer service and what the best practices are. But before that, that bio was a touch short. Help us fill in the gaps. Tell us more about you.
Yeah, so I ended up going to school for professional sales. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in professional selling, and I sold everything from door to door to managing call centers, selling over the phone, home service needs for homeowners, and man, you name it. I love the psychology of the way people think and what makes them tick, what motivates them, what people expect. And so, yeah, my career has kind of been interesting just with that background in really a sales environment and helping people feel comfortable and like you and trust you to invest in whatever it is you're offering and the entire decision-making process. So I think the reason why is my wife once told me, she's like, man, you can get along with any personality type. And I think it's because I have 12 brothers and sisters. I don't know if I've ever told you that,
Yeah, I
Carl.
think you have, but it's always shocking to hear.
Yeah, so I've got six brothers that are very, very competitive. I've got six sisters that are even more competitive. And maybe we were just competing for mom and dad's time all growing up, but we learned how to get along with everyone. And, when you have that big of a family with that much experience at your fingertips, and we have a great relationship as siblings, it gives us a lot of insight. And when I got into marketing and consulting for dentists, it was really, how do you target all these households? Because I have 100 nieces and nephews. And so when you combine all of that, and it's like, okay, the target audience for a private practice in any healthcare scenario is my family.
Is the Goetz family. Yeah.
It is.
You got a thriving practice on the Goetz family.
Yeah. So, it's been fun to build out marketing strategies around that. And, that bio is a little outdated because we pivoted back in, I want to say January of this year. We pivoted into healthcare. So we do a lot with ophthalmology.
Okay.
We do stuff with, ENT, surgical practices. We've done some stuff with physical therapists, gym owners, still in the healthcare space. And so we've done a lot of different things like that over the past few months. And it's been really enlightening to get into some of those other spaces.
Yeah.
And realize that it all comes back to the topic today, which is the customer service journey.
Yeah.
And really the patient experience and the consumer experiences that we're trying.
So I got to ask you, is Thanksgiving even possible with, I
Yeah,
mean, that's
it's
just the nieces and nephews. You got to, triple that for everybody. I mean, is that even possible?
yeah, it's kind of crazy. We're trying to plan.
It's like
We
30
plan.
turkeys. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know, like, oh my God.
typically we end up with about 50 to 60 on
Or is that
Thanksgiving.
all?
Yeah. And so it's actually very manageable. The harder thing for us to manage is the family reunion we do every 3 years, because we have a family ranch that my parents built a home on years ago, and
Mhm.
that it's a pretty great gathering space, but we have more people camping around the cabin than
Yeah.
we
It's
do.
not a hotel, this house your parents built. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
so we just plan on a total chaotic fun few days every few years, but it's a lot of fun.
I can't, yeah. I just my head goes to the logistics. Like, I don't, what does breakfast look like with your, anyway, yeah. For another time. All right.
Yeah.
So best practices in customer service. Something that obviously there's a spectrum here. Some practices are amazing, but most are partial or not so much. It's kind of a blind spot, not sure. So let's get into this. And I want to start with just, it's hard to define, but just what, for you, what's included in customer service versus what's not? I ask just so we can all be sort of roughly thinking of the similar thing as we talk about this.
Everything. The
Oh,
entire, I mean, honestly, from the very beginning of introducing your practice,
anything non-clinical, I guess, right?
yeah, it's everything to do with the experience. Like,
Mm-hmm.
customer service is what type, if you can keep a North Star of what experience do we want our patients to have
Mm-hmm.
and our community to have, because that your customer service starts with your non-customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, Everything that we do is marketing. Everything that we do is selling ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
from the time we learn how to date and ask somebody to go out with us,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing in business. And
Mm-hmm.
it's customer service is really what can make or break your practice, because you could be the most amazing marketer in the world, but if you're not providing a great experience, you're bleeding everything out the back door.
Yeah.
Zero retention. And there's a lot of private practices where there is no retention game. Like,
Yeah.
the whole goal is to see them once and fix the problem and send them on their way.
Yeah.
Where there's other things like in dentistry where it's like, oh no, this is all about the relationship, getting them back and
Mm-hmm.
retaining.
Yeah.
So I think it first and foremost, it's understanding, what is your customer journey map look like?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing at every touch point
Mm-hmm.
to create the experience you originally created as your North Star?
Yeah. And so for my next question, I want to add a part to it. So the question is, why do you think so many medical and dental practices are late to the game in prioritizing this? And then the add-on is something that you said. So it makes, maybe it's more intuitive for a general dentistry practice to say, we need to do this on top of everything else. We want people to come back. But what if you're a specialist, let's say a surgeon, or, where it's kind of, it's more or less one and done. Maybe people will come back. So I could imagine that population, or a good chunk of it, saying, yeah, we don't need to worry about that as much because they're, when are we going to see him again? What's the need? But so I want you to address that too, because I have a thought, but I want you to address why anybody should think about this, whether it's one and done or, you know, ongoing.
Because people talk.
Yep.
And 86, what is it? I think the last statistic was 86% of consumers will trust a Google review before they'll trust an actual recommendation of a clinician. And
Yeah.
so, everybody is trying to get Google reviews today. And if you're not, you need to start.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a brother who's a ENT,
Hmm.
and he came to me a couple of years ago and said, "Hey, I'm part of a practice, but I don't know what that future is going to hold, and if I
Hmm.
really am going to buy in, and if I'm going to partner, or if I'm going to look for something else." And because he didn't love the location for his
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let's start a Google business profile immediately.
Hmm.
And let's start getting you private Google reviews just under your name as a physician.
Hmm.
And that made all the difference when he transitioned into his new practice, because people searched his name as recommendations.
Yeah.
And even though he wasn't yet established at his new practice in a new state,
Hmm.
he had an online presence under his name.
Right.
And that helped immediately with his referral conversion rate where people
Right.
showed up and he had a high, you might get referrals all day long, but if there's a bad online presence about you
Yeah.
somewhere,
Yeah.
that can hurt and never even give that patient a chance to experience what your customer service is.
Yeah. And if you take a step back from online, your reputation matters. It just does. And it's mattered since the beginning of human history, right? I mean, what others say about you matters. And, reviews are just the way to express it today. And so, you are, make it up, you are a endodontist. And then you have a patient and they feel fine, but they're like, they have friends. Oh, who'd you use? Don't worry about it. That's death right there.
Yeah.
There it is. That took less than a second to say, whatever, look around. Is that
Yeah.
really that's what happens? It's what's always happened. There's nothing new about that. Why would you want to let that happen? Why would you
Yeah.
deny that it does happen? Why would you think that it doesn't apply to you simply because, I don't know, you've cooked on, why would you want somebody to say that about you? Like they just, where's the intrinsic drive to say, you know what, I want people to think that we're good at what we do. I mean, I believe I'm good at what we do. I want others to think the same thing.
Yeah.
Why would you deviate from that,
I think that you look at your own experiences, and we all look at it differently when we're in the healthcare industry. I can't help myself as a
Well, the same. Yes.
consultant, right?
Yeah.
I got a phone call the other day from my daughter's dentist saying, it was just her dental office saying, "Hey, we're calling to confirm your appointment at 2:00 on Tuesday. Can you make it in?"
Mhm.
And I said, well, I couldn't even confirm my appointment because immediately the consultant in me was like, "Okay, hold on a second. Yes, I'm going to be there at 2, but are you open to some ideas on how you can make these phone calls a little bit better so you don't have people rescheduling on you all the time?"
Mhm.
And I caught her off guard. I said, "I'm a marketing consultant for dental offices. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
can't help myself. Are you
Yeah.
open to feedback?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, I just started here." I said, "Stop saying I'm calling to confirm your appointment. I already confirmed my
Yeah.
appointment with you 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Call and say, 'This is Susan. I'm calling to remind you of your appointment at 2:00 on Tuesday
Mhm.
that you already confirmed with me 6 months ago. What's the likelihood of me wanting to reschedule if you're calling to remind me of something I already confirmed?" And she goes,
Mhm.
"Oh my gosh, thank you." And I said,
Yeah.
simple subtleties in the customer journey and in the
Yeah.
customer service
Yeah.
that it makes people feel like, oh, they're calling me because they know me, they remember
Mhm.
me, and they're
Mhm.
reminding me so that we
Mhm.
can see each other again.
Yeah.
So I left the dental industry for a small 2-year stint. And I went and worked for a company called Qualtrics. It's a big tech
Yep.
company that does consumer behavior and consumer research.
Mhm.
And it's all about voice of customer research. And I learned a lot about customer service in that time frame because it taught me not to be afraid to ask for feedback.
Mhm.
It taught me to teach and consult business owners. You want to know how people's experience is going, or you're never
Mhm.
going to improve.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I also recommend a lot is, do you have a protocol to ask people how their experience went, not just for a Google review,
Mhm.
but are you doing a once a year patient
Yeah.
satisfaction survey?
Yeah. And what I like about the example about I'm calling to confirm, like that sounds very self-serving. So how is that customer service? So my head went to first, I'm like you, I'd be a little annoyed. I already confirmed. Why do we have to double confirm? So I'm annoyed, avoid the annoyance. And then secondly, if you ask it that way, I can see some people going, oh, wait, now I have to stop my day, my busy day, and think about something. Do I need to confirm this? Don't do that to people. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
think about something they don't really need to think about. If I really needed to schedule, I'll call you.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And so,
And by the way, the whole thing could be done with a text. Hey, reminder, your appointment's six.
yes,
No, you have to
here's a
call.
reminder text.
Yeah, yeah. So
And the people who call, they're typically the ones that are struggling with show rate because their
yeah,
customer experience is probably falling short. So
yeah.
if you're currently feeling an obligation to call
Hmm.
and not just send a reminder text,
Hmm.
maybe you should be revisiting your
Hmm.
entire customer journey map and where are your touch points.
Yeah. And so let's get into that. What are some examples of really good customer service that you've seen? And start the beginning of the journey, the end of the journey. however you want. Just give us some, and we can kind of riff because I've seen some too. And but I like the one about, ask your patients. I feel like not even I've been told this, don't want to stir, don't want to get people thinking about negative things. No, I mean, you're asking for feedback, so they may, but it's all how you frame it. And I got to tell you, people really, they want to be, it's a positive experience actually.
Yeah.
When you just gotta be careful of what you promise you're going to do, but we will do what you say. No, we're gathering a pool of information. We want to see where we can improve. No promises on what we're going to do, but your voice is not replaceable with anybody else's. So we want to hear how we're doing. It's a sign of
Yeah.
strength. And I got to tell you, listeners, none of your competition does it pretty much. So if you make one little change based on what you heard, light years improvement compared to your competition. Nobody does this. It's too bad, but nobody does.
Yeah. And I would say consistency is key. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where, it's one thing to do it for a day or for a week. It's a
Mm-hmm.
completely different thing to do it for a 30-year career.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can set a tone, like I worked in the hospitality industry when I was selling timeshare to pay my way through my sales program. We had to
Mm-hmm.
have a sales job, and my professor said, "Hey, my brother runs a sales team selling timeshare. You
Mm-hmm.
should go,
Mm-hmm.
consider working for him."
Mm-hmm.
So I went and I shadowed for a day, and I was like, "This is so fun. People listen to music and talk about dream vacations all day. Let's do this." And I'll never forget my first day in sales training. They put me through a really robust 6-week sales program or
Mm-hmm.
sales training program before I could start selling.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole first week was all about what we do and our foundational principles as a business. And they were a
Mm-hmm.
global company, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it taught me a lot when I started my own consultancy with a couple of employees. And I set the tone when I had my first 2 employees on board. I said, "This is who we are. This
Mm-hmm.
is what our culture will be. This is how we will handle concerns and objections. This is going to be our guarantee. This is why."
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, as we have implemented that and rolled that out,
Mm-hmm.
know what we stand for. They know that we'll typically be the first ones to fire ourselves. They don't need to tell us that they want to be done
Mm-hmm.
because we know when we've delivered everything that we feel somebody needs.
So you're saying one principle of really good customer service is establishing this, what you're describing.
Yeah, if you don't have a playbook to play the game
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have a rule book, then you're in the Wild West. And
Mm-hmm.
I think businesses, small businesses are good. You mentioned like what's some good examples? Why do they maybe put it off? There's a million other things to just make sure that you're providing a standard of care.
Yeah.
But do you have an entire chapter in your standard of care and in your roadmap or in your playbook that is just dedicated to customer service? What are the most common complaints in a dental practice? What are the
Mm-hmm.
most common complaints for a referral based private surgical practice?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a spine surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a specialist out of the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, I abide by the rules of the hospital, but this is also my world in
Mm-hmm.
this suite of that hospital. And I have certain things that I need to do.
Yeah.
And one of the best examples of customer service that I've seen was actually while I was in the hospitality industry. And I've tried to adopt this in every business I've worked in and
Mm-hmm.
every team that I've managed. And that is when I went and stayed at the Ritz-Carlton, I
Mm-hmm.
was told because I was I worked for one of their competitors. And I was told if you ever stay at a Ritz-Carlton, if you ask somebody where the bathroom is, they don't point and tell you where to go. They will walk you there if they are an employee of the property. And I BS, no way.
Yeah.
So I put it to the test and I actually went to the bottom of a ladder, a 15-foot A-frame ladder where a janitor was changing a light bulb in a chandelier in the main entrance. And I said, "Excuse me, do you know where the restroom is?" And he's like, "Oh, of course, sir. One moment."
Came
He
all the way
took the
down.
light bulb, he climbed all the way down the ladder, and he walked me all the way down the hall and walked me to the entrance of the bathroom and said, "It's right here." And while we were walking, "So where are you from?"
Yeah.
This is the janitor wearing
Yeah.
his jumpsuit.
Yeah.
And I was blown away. I
Yeah.
came back from that to my sales team and I said, "You guys, we are falling short
Mm-hmm.
from our experience of people who stay at our property."
Yeah.
And so we've just done that. Like
Hmm.
if I see garbage on the floor in my bathroom, I pick it up. I
Hmm.
expect my employees to do the same thing. Now
Hmm.
I work from home, but once a month we have an off-site where we meet as a team,
Hmm.
and people know we will leave a place better than we find it every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. What are some small examples you've seen? Dental practices, medical practice. I've got one or two examples, but I want to hear what you've got.
I've got one practice that I really love. They are the epitome of feeling warmth and welcomed every
Hmm.
time you walk in.
Hmm.
The person at the front desk stands up every time somebody walks in the door.
Mm.
Says, "Hi, welcome in. I'm Samantha. You must be," and she'll usually know who the next person on the schedule is that's due to show up.
Hmm.
Or if they know who they are as a return patient, they study and they have a picture. Every new patient intake, they snap a picture to go in the chart.
Oh, smart.
So that way they know, okay, when this guy shows up, that's John. When
Yep.
this guy shows up, it's Carl, right?
Hmm.
And they reach out and they shake their hand
Mm.
as they walk in.
Hmm.
And I'm going out of my way. I'm reaching over the desk and I'm shaking their hand saying, welcome in, Carl.
Hmm.
It's been a while. How have
Hmm.
you been? How's the
Hmm.
family?
Hmm.
Almost always have some personal note on the
Hmm.
patient's chart.
Hmm.
They told us last time that they're going to Europe. Hey, did you make it to Europe? It's just one
Yeah.
amazing thing. And she's dynamite. She does
Yeah.
it every single patient. And if it's a new patient, she actually walks around the counter with a bottle of water and says, welcome to our practice. Would you like a bottle of water? My name's Samantha. I'm going to be checking you in today and giving you kind of a lay of the land. Because if I'm not mistaken, this is your first time with us, right?
Yeah.
And it's just this wow factor from the very beginning. Uh,
Yeah.
and so I really, really love how they do that. And it's the small things, but it makes a huge difference in the way they receive people.
What I like about it is, if you think, just take insurance based, I'm sure I'm oversimplifying, but it's getting more and more transactional because insurance squeezes a bit more every year. And you've got to, what do you do in response? You try to, shorten the appointment, whatever. You get very, very operationally efficient. It's not wrong. But the relationship side of things, just by definition, takes a little longer than transactional. And so fewer and fewer do it. So if you could do it well, you just stand out.
Yeah.
And what does that take? 15 seconds, what you just described? I
Yeah.
mean, a
And
minute,
well,
doesn't
and
take
it's fun.
long.
I was talking to that doctor and I said, are you a little bit overstaffed? And he goes, yeah, I've been going back and forth on, maybe we need one less person at the front desk, but I can't bring myself to do it because I feel like Samantha makes such a difference for people to come back and to feel welcomed
Hmm.
that I think it's almost worth paying just for that position for retention purposes.
Smart man.
And I said, that's brilliant. I
Yeah.
love it. Why you're willing to be overstaffed. A
Yeah.
lot of people, it's more of, I don't want to stir the pot. I don't want to have to worry about hiring when we do grow again.
Hmm.
Like he knew
Hmm.
we were overstaffed, and it started, he told me, that process of having Samantha do the welcoming started when they felt overstaffed right after the pandemic.
Hmm.
And he's like, I realized during that time I wanted to provide employment and health benefits for everybody with the unknown of what was going on at the time.
Hmm.
I also knew that I could come up with some of those things with our customer experience and our patient
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So that's where he utilized his overstaffed timing
Yeah.
to identify some of those things.
Yeah. That's a cool example. One of the ones, this is our family dentist. Um, and it's so small. So I'm in there. I'm getting, so now the hygienist is done. And there's 3 or 4 minutes maybe between the end of that and the dentist coming in to check me out. And then so she starts saying, want to schedule your next appointment? Yeah, let's do it. And then so when he's done, we shake hands. I just leave. Like it's
Yeah.
just, it's I noticed it and I went, God, that was so smart. I mean, she's just sitting there, because she's got to stay for the check over when the dentist comes in. Let's do it. I
Yeah.
mean, little thing, just little thing. And I walking out going, all right, now the front desk, which is, greeting and then phones and paperwork, I'm one less distraction for them now.
Yeah.
So everybody's better off.
I did a training just this morning before this recording, and it was an interesting training because I had specifically asked my client to set up a tripod. We have these tripods we buy for our clients. They're $22 on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
They stand all the way up to 6 feet tall and they hold any smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, as part of your training services, I need you to take the tripod, put it in the corner of your consultation room, and I want you to record all of your consultations over the next week,
Mm-hmm.
upload to the folder in the cloud so we can analyze them and provide training.
Mm-hmm.
Because part of what we do is our sales training.
Mm-hmm.
And this gal, I'm telling you, every training up until these recordings knocked it out of the park. I mean, role plays over Zoom, over phone calls. She sounded amazing. Her verbiage was spot on. Her identifying of the customer cues with the patient, like
Mm-hmm.
she knew her stuff, 30 years and done.
Mm-hmm.
And she sends me these recordings, and it was like a train wreck. And I was
Really?
just like, what in the world?
Mm-hmm.
And I asked the doctor, I said, now I understand why you hired us. Like, but I was confused the first time that we got on a Zoom call because this gal was spot on. And he goes,
Mm-hmm.
she's the best role player I've ever witnessed. She knows what to say, how to say it, how to handle any scenario where she's being evaluated. But you get her in a live environment and it's like all bets are off. She's
Interesting.
lost.
Interesting.
And she just gets really, really scattered. She repeats herself a lot and stumbles. And I mean, so I just went through this coaching and I said, and I'll call her Susan for
Mm-hmm.
anonymity purposes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I said, Susan, talk to me. Why do you feel so rushed and so scattered? And she's like, I've never had it, like in 30 years, nobody's ever recorded me and nobody's ever shown me this.
Hmm.
And
She didn't notice it.
I said, so you had no idea? And she goes, no. And honestly, both of the recordings that she uploaded this past week, the patient signed up for, one of them was like $7,000 worth of treatment, and one of them was almost $50,000 worth of treatment.
Mm.
And I said, well, it's a darn good thing that those patients really liked the doctor.
Yeah.
Because you missed them from hello. Like,
wow.
it was that scattered and that bad.
Yeah.
And I said, tell me about the past history with these patients. And she's like, well, they've been coming to us for years.
Yeah. So, right.
And I said, well, you're lucky that they have that trust and rapport with the doctor because you're not helping the situation. And I want to help you fix things. And come to find out, she was the one who had been in the office for so many years. Everybody just thought she can do no wrong.
Mm.
But the doctor overheard her on a call a few weeks earlier, and then he listened in on a consultation a couple of weeks after that, and he's like, oh my gosh, she needs a refresher. So now we're in the process of breaking these habits that she's created.
Yeah.
But very open to it in the way we approached her customer service.
Yeah.
She wasn't introducing herself. She wasn't getting to know, because she already knows everyone, but she wasn't any interest.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just getting back to the basics of a relationship.
Yeah. Here's another one. This is a bad experience I had recently. This is my primary care. So here's the first thing. And they don't say this. You schedule your appointment for, say, 9 a.m. It's really 15 minutes later, but they don't tell you that. And then I was told, well, it says arrive at 9. I said, I booked it for 9. You're the only ones who know that. So 9:15. At 9:40, when I didn't hear anything, I walked up and I said, like, what's going on? Oh, he's behind. He's this. I said, look, I got to reschedule. And I actually said to them, I said, every appointment's a disappointment here. And then I came back a few days later. He said, yeah, we actually had a huddle after you left because I said, and all I cared about was, can somebody just tell me you're running behind? I would have sat there for an hour and a half with nobody. Just respect your patients. If you're running behind, again, it's actually a good move to say, look, we're really behind today. It's unusual. We want to reschedule. Stay if you like, but let's get you rescheduled if you don't, because if I could tell you when, I would, but I can't. So we want to respect your time. And that's how I walked out feeling, my time matters too. Seriously. And I was just so, people fall behind. It's a fact of life, right? It's just how you handle it. So handling foibles proactively, I guess this is the message. is actually a good thing, not a, you're not calling attention to something bad. You're actually fixing something bad, which is what
Yeah.
anybody wants, I think.
You know, it's funny you say that. I've had this idea for the past couple of years for a patient, like a really positive patient experience to help manage expectations of their patient base
Mm-hmm.
and communicate what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's $1 billion idea, but
Mm-hmm.
it's outside of my wheelhouse. I don't understand a lot of tech stuff and how to build it.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these appointment reminder systems that are automated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can't they have an integrated system? And if someone's listening to this
Mm-hmm.
episode who
Yeah.
has the capability, please build this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want 5%.
Yeah. Right.
But genuinely, why not build it into a reminder system that if the patient has not been checked in, meaning not only checked in at the office, but then if they are going more than 5 minutes past when they were told
Mm-hmm.
that someone would be out to grab them,
Mm-hmm.
that they get a text message, because everybody nowadays is on their
Yeah.
in the
Some way
waiting
to,
room.
yeah, there's some way.
But
So,
right then, that can
yeah.
say,
Yeah.
we're so sorry for the wait, Jake. We're running about 30 minutes behind. If you need to reschedule, please click this link or walk up and talk to us at the desk.
I think that could be good. I will tell you, I was one of two people in the waiting room, and there were two people at the desk. Nobody
Yeah.
looks up. It's just, what you're asking for is yes, but all they had to do was look up. I mean, I just, it's just, yeah.
Well, and it's the same thing with like Google reviews, like we talked about. As soon as people automate sending a
Mhm.
text message to ask for Google reviews, they suddenly get a lot more Google reviews because the staff has
Shocker.
a million things to juggle. They forget to
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah.
And so why not create a system that says, boom, click a button. We've checked them in at the front desk.
Hmm.
Boom, we click a button. We've now taken them out of the waiting room. And if that button doesn't get clicked, it's as
Yeah.
easy as sending an automated note to say, we're so sorry, we're running behind. Would you, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to step up to the counter and ask.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Something. Because you're right. Like I was thinking, how would somebody's got to trigger all right, Carl's been taken back now. Maybe the person who comes out to grab you could just hit a button. Yeah. I mean, there's some sort of,
or you're like, I'll never forget the bad experience that I had when I went in for my back surgery consultation.
so how many years ago was this bad consultation? This bad
Uh,
experience, listeners? How
yeah,
many
it was
years ago?
about 6 or 7 years ago.
You remember a bad experience that was what, 30 minutes, 6 or 7 years ago?
Yeah.
Listeners, he's not the only one. And it's not just because he's in this industry. He's not the only one. Nobody's
Yeah.
perfect, but get better at stuff that Jake's. I don't even know what you're going to say, but keep going.
So I go in and I'm recommended by my PCP
Mhm.
and to go to this back surgeon that everybody raves about. He's the same doctor that has treated, athletes and gotten
Right.
back on, on the field, on the court, whatever. And so I go in and check in, seamless.
Mhm.
Coming back, seamless.
Mhm.
Talking to the PA for 30 minutes, waiting for the surgeon to come in, where I got 3 minutes with the surgeon. Wow, I'm about to invest in spinal surgery and I get 3 minutes with my surgeon.
Mhm.
I get that you're busy, but you guys, this is a serious.
I only have one back.
Yeah.
Like this has to go well. Yeah.
And I know that I know because I've now consulted with these types of PAs and surgeons and in working through this, that they feel the weight of the world on their shoulders, right? I mean, that physician's assistant is there to help ensure that people schedule and start treatment.
Mhm.
Well, you're not helping yourself as a physician if you don't spend a little bit of time building rapport and
Yeah.
a little bit of trust with your patient.
Yeah.
And you can't do that in 3 minutes. If you think you're doing a good enough job in 3 minutes just because you have a wait list that takes people 2 months to come in and see you,
Mhm.
I have not referred a single person to that surgeon. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
capable, but he didn't make me feel good.
No.
He
And
didn't make
just because he knows in his mind, let's say, this only takes 180 seconds. Jake doesn't know that. And this is frightening. It reminds me of something that's like a Disney principle, Disney parks principle. Treat every visitor like it's their first time here and just lay it on thick. And they're only as Disney can. And anybody who's been to Disney, there's a reason why they're doing what they're doing. And that's, they want you to have the best time of your life. And they know that takes work and intention.
Well, and after the surgery, it just got worse and worse. It
Mm,
was, I did setting the expectations of what I should feel. Like the surgeon, he came in and read my chart when I was still half drugged. And that was literally, I went through the whole surgery and I saw him for a total of maybe 6 minutes
mm,
over a 3 month period leading up to meeting with him, scheduling, having the surgery, and getting checked out of the hospital.
mhm.
And I think back on that a lot. And I think that I was terrified that something was wrong, the pain that I was in during recovery,
Mhm.
and that I didn't even get a phone call back, that I didn't even get an email back. Like I sent a private email to the physician and it was responded back by the physician's assistant,
Wow.
signed by him. I had an amazing rapport with him,
Mhm.
but I had questions for the trained expert who was digging around in my spine.
Yeah. And the customer service lesson here is nobody likes surprises. They want to know, we all as humans want to know what's coming. And the more serious the thing is, the more we'd like to know. Not that you can dispel everything and have 100% clarity, but just what are the steps of the process? What happens when? About how long do you think I'm going to be in pain? What's recovery broadly look like? Just give me a preview. Um, like when we pitch marketing services to somebody, I say, look, once we're going on our cruising rate of monthly, here's what it looks like. Here's what the startup's going to look like broadly, so that you know what's coming, and here's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's still vague, mainly because I know what I'm talking about, and they haven't done more. But people want to know what's coming. If it's a teeth cleaning, nah, big deal. We've had it before. But if it's a first time new procedure or whatever, and there's something that you got to tell them, just tell them. They want to know what's coming. We all, you, Dr. X, would like to know what's coming about things you've never done before, just like anybody else. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And 6 or 7 years later, Jake's not referring anybody. So that can happen to anybody.
No, I had a one last little example of a very
Yeah.
positive experience. I had a doctor that responded to me after I got, I slipped on ice, cracked my head open, 10 staples in the back of my head, horrible whiplash.
Wow.
And I went into the ER after hours.
Mm-hmm.
Doc came in, asked me when the last time was. I got my tetanus and, went through all of his protocols, cracking jokes with me as he's stapling up the back of my head
Mm-hmm.
because he knows that I'm a klutz. I had been in earlier because of a similar type of accident that led to my back surgery, and he was the same
Mm-hmm.
emergency doc. And the nurse says to him in front of me, would you like him to get a tetanus? And he goes, no, the dude just cracked his head open
Mm-hmm.
from and I left this part out because it's kind of embarrassing. I was 35 years old and I was playing on a pogo stick and I slipped on ice on a pogo stick, which is what cracked my head open. And he goes, are you kidding me? This guy just cracked his head open from a pogo stick. He'll be back. Like, we
Yeah.
don't give him his tetanus today. He called me the next day after I was discharged. And he said, hey, I'm a little concerned about your neck. You complained about your head, but now that your head and the staples have, kind of
Mm-hmm.
settled, are you having any issues with the incision point? And or the laceration point. And I said, no, thank you. I appreciate the call. He goes, I'm actually calling because I'm worried about your neck.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you had an issue with your back previously. A lot of people, they crack their head open, have issues with their neck with whiplash. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, yeah, now that you mention it, my neck really has been bothering me today.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I want you to, and he gave me a quick protocol. He said, I want you to follow up with us. Let me give you the office number if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not here,
Mm-hmm.
and follow up with your PCP on that.
Yeah.
That was
Perfect.
just the beginning of his shift. He came in a few minutes early the next day and he called me because he had a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's any other ER that I want to go to anymore?
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah.
As a man with a family and a daughter who visits the ER regularly because she's as much of a klutz as her dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like we go to that ER because
Mm-hmm.
he gave us that added touch point of customer service.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so we have covered a lot. And you started by saying customer service is everything that's not clinical service. So this could be an overwhelming concept. So where would you recommend somebody, like, simple places to start? Because we've had some large concepts: talk to your patients once a year, set a culture and a tone. And I like playbook and rule book. That's very cool. Um, where can somebody get started?
I would
Simple
start,
place, you know?
yeah, if you've got an established patient base, start with a customer satisfaction survey, not just a
Mm,
Google review invitation,
hmm
and make it a habit to do a customer satisfaction survey once a year
hmm
and incentivize the people, whether it's a raffle. Hey, take our survey. If
hmm
you invest 5 minutes, you're entered into a raffle for a
hmm
gift card.
hmm
People do anything for a $10 gift card to
Yeah.
Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
Um, or we're doing a big giveaway for X.
hmm
Like for dentists, they do all kinds of fun stuff where they'll do
hmm
a mountain bike giveaway. Like I
hmm
have a client that gives away a $5,000 mountain bike because he loves mountain biking.
hmm
And anyone who participates in his survey every year, that's just a cost of research and development.
That's right. I was just going to say, don't cheap out on these things, people, because the odds of finding an idea that's worth more than the cost of your giveaway is very, very, very high,
Yeah.
you know?
And so, that's something that I think is an easy way to start. And
hmm
with AI now, you don't have to be the one to analyze all the data and all the responses.
True.
You
True.
can copy, you get it out of a tool like a Qualtrics or a Survey Monkey that'll put all your responses in
Yeah.
an easy Excel spreadsheet,
hmm
upload it to Chat GPT and
hmm
say, please analyze this and give me bullet points of the top 3 areas of opportunity to improve our customer service experience.
Yep. And it's so easy. So it's a 1 to 10 scale. And there's a lot of research to back this up. If somebody says 9 or 10, they're satisfied. If they say anything less, 8 down to 1, follow up. So if they say 9 or 10, the question is essentially, what do you think? Why do you love us so much? That's not how you'd say it. If it's 8 or below, what can we do better?
Yeah.
And just that's it. And all the research on the 1 to 10 scale, the customer points to 8 or lower, there's room for improvements. 9 or 10, you're there. But you want to know how to keep it there with them because
Yeah.
you know what? It's hard to convince 8s to 1s to become 9s or 10s. You want to keep your 9s or 10s. You still want to do it. You can get 7s and 8s up to 9s. It's hard to get the other ones.
Yep.
You want to keep your 9s and 10s happy. That's all. 2 questions. Where are you 1 to 10? Why are you there? That's it.
That's exactly
And then
right.
feed it all up to Chat GPT, and then there's gold.
Yeah. It'll give you an easy output. And you can even ask it, what would be a 12-month implementation plan or a
Yeah.
3-month implementation plan to help me with this?
Yeah.
And you can take it and say, but I want this, I want you to remember, and you can coach Chat GPT
hmm
and tell them, remember that our mission statement is this, our
hmm
vision statement is this, our goal is this.
hmm
And if you teach it what you're trying to accomplish, then it will spit out something aligned with that goal.
Correct.
So your input equals your output, garbage in, garbage out.
hmm
If you preface what you're trying to accomplish before asking it to give you recommendations, you will always get a much better
Yeah.
customized plan
Yeah.
that you can then work off of.
Yeah. Survey Monkey's so easy. You could probably do like a Google form. They're both free. That's why, Survey Monkey's got a free version. This would fit. It doesn't have to be hard. You just got to be willing to put in the work to get it. That's great. Any other places anybody could get started? I mean, if they wanted to pick something simple, I just don't want to leave the question because it's a big topic.
Yeah, another one that we've started doing a lot more with the big procedures that you want to do more of, your favorite procedures,
Mhm.
find a patient advocate that's already received that
hmm
and bring them in and hold an open house, like a seminar about that procedure.
Hmm.
And that's a great way that you can say, you know what, we've recommended this treatment or this procedure to all of these patients that are yet to start treatment.
hmm
We're going to invite all of them to come back for an open house Q&A with the physician or with the doctor.
hmm
Everybody who comes, who attends, will give them a door prize gift, or we'll enter them into a raffle to receive a percentage off if it's a fee for service and insurance isn't going to cover it.
hmm
There's some really great, easy ways that you can get that patient advocate to come back
hmm
and then watch and observe what questions and allow that patient advocate to almost sit on a panel of Q&A.
Yeah.
Other patients can ask questions. What was the recovery time like? What was the prep time like? Do you wish you would have done something different to get ready for that procedure?
Yeah.
And listen to the patient. And and then ask the patient vulnerably. I just did this for one of my dentists the other day.
Mhm.
Said, what do you wish the staff would have done differently to help prepare you for
Ooh,
that
nice
procedure?
one. Yeah.
And he's like, oh, they were fantastic. And he sold the whole room on why there's no other option besides this dental team to take care of
Hmm.
it. And I asked the other patient advocate, we had two of them there. I said, how
Hmm.
about you? Is there anything that you feel the staff could have performed better at? And he said, I I was a little bit concerned with my financing options, how I was going to pay for this.
Hmm.
And uh, they weren't very clear telling me what my options were. So I waited 3 months until I realized I misunderstood them.
Ah,
And so they were like, oh my gosh, what did you misunderstand? And right
yeah.
in front of the room,
Yeah.
they're like, and he said, I didn't understand that it was 0% interest for the first 12 months. I thought I was going to have to pay 16.5% interest the whole time.
Mm.
And they're like, oh my gosh, that would have been, we would have started treatment 3 months earlier
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah.
just would have clarified that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then a little pro tip, take all those Q&A, because if 5 people have the questions, a lot of others do, get them up on the website for that treatment page, FAQs, and
Yes.
then promise you others have the same questions. So answer them right away. Jake, this has been awesome. As always, lots of good information. We picked a big topic. Listeners, you don't have to boil the ocean. Pick your cliche, Rome wasn't built in a day, whatever. But pick some place to start, get in the habit, and improve over time. So thank you for coming on Practice Care and helping us understand this.
No, absolutely. It's always fun. I learn something every time I come on
Oh,
these.
me too. Yeah. And you gave your contact information, which is going to go into the show notes for this episode. So now people have another way to get a hold of you. Couple quick points before we wrap up. First, you got to subscribe to Practice Care. If you haven't done it yet, Practice Care is one word. It's a new episode every week, and that's the easiest way to get notified of them is just to subscribe. And finally, also, if you're like Jake or I and you serve private practice owners, or if you're a private practice owner yourself, either way, you've got experience or expertise on the business side of private practice. We want you to come on Practice Care so you can tell the world about it. In the show notes for Jake's episode, every episode, there's a link, takes you 2 seconds. Just tell us what's on your mind, and we'll get you scheduled as soon as possible. Thanks very much, and until next time.